the first supersonic aircraft, a symbol of the new era of Canada in the air.
Canada once built something the world was never supposed to see. Not a secret prototype hidden in a hangar, not a theoretical design on paper, but a fully operational fighter jet so advanced that it quietly outpaced both American and Soviet technology. And then, almost overnight, the same country ordered it erased. Burn the blueprints. Shred the aircraft. Wipe it from history. This wasn't just the cancellation of a military project. It was the deliberate destruction of Canada's technological future. To understand how this happened, you have to go back to the tense years after World War II. The fighting had ended, but the fear hadn't. The Cold War had already begun, and the skies were becoming the next battlefield. The Soviet Union was developing long-range bombers, capable of carrying nuclear weapons across continents. If war ever broke out, those bombers wouldn't head straight for the United States. They would fly over the Arctic. Over Canada, geography turned Canada into a frontline nation, whether it wanted that role or not. Every Soviet bomber heading toward American cities would pass through Canadian airspace first. Washington understood this clearly and made its expectations known. If an attack came, Canada would need to intercept those aircraft before they reached the U.S. The problem was simple and terrifying. Canada didn't have anything fast enough to stop them. At the time, the Royal Canadian Air Force relied on the CF-105 Canuck. It was dependable, but it was already becoming obsolete. It struggled to break the sound barrier while Soviet bombers were getting faster, higher, and deadlier. Buying foreign jets wasn't a solution either. Nothing available could meet the extreme requirements Canada now faced. So the country made a decision that shocked even its allies. Canada would build its own interceptor from scratch. In 1952, the RCAF released requirements that sounded almost impossible. The aircraft had to operate in brutal Arctic conditions, fly in all weather, reach beyond Mach 1.5, and intercept bombers long before they crossed into North America. This wasn't an upgrade to an existing jet. It was a technological leap into the future. Avro Canada, the country's largest aerospace company, accepted the challenge. What they designed stunned everyone who saw it. The CF-105 Avro Arrow didn't look like any fighter before it. Its sharp delta wings weren't about appearance. They were engineered for sustained supersonic flight. The aircraft was massive for a fighter, longer than many bombers from just a decade earlier. It carried two powerful engines, a crew of two, and was built for one purpose: speed, altitude, and interception. On paper alone, the Arrow was extraordinary. It was capable of flying at Mach 2, over 1,300 miles per hour. Its range allowed it to patrol vast stretches of the Arctic. Its weapons were stored internally to reduce drag, allowing it to maintain extreme speeds. But the real breakthrough was control. The Arrow used an early fly-by-wire system, replacing traditional mechanical controls with electronic signals. This allowed precise handling at supersonic speeds, something even the United States hadn't fully mastered yet. This was future technology forced into the 1950s. American engineers who observed the program were reportedly stunned. International aviation experts openly questioned how Canada had advanced so far, so fast. For a brief moment, it looked like Canada was on the verge of becoming a true aerospace superpower. But building the future came at a brutal cost. The Arrow program was originally approved with a budget of around $260 million Canadian dollars. That number didn't survive reality. Engine programs were canceled one after another, forcing redesigns. Weapon systems supplied by the United States were abruptly terminated, leaving Canada with an aircraft that had no finalized missile package. Every delay meant more money. Every redesign meant more doubt. Costs climbed toward $400 million, consuming nearly a third of Canada's entire defense budget. Politicians began asking uncomfortable questions. Why was one aircraft project swallowing so much funding? Why did the Air Force get priority while the Army and Navy struggled? Why was Canada spending billions on a jet while citizens needed hospitals, schools, and infrastructure? Then the strategic landscape shifted again. By the late 1950s, the Soviets were focusing less on bombers and more on intercontinental ballistic missiles. ICBMs flew faster, higher, and couldn't be intercepted by aircraft at all. If bombers were becoming obsolete, critics argued, then so was the Arrow. That argument reached the highest levels of government. In 1957, John Diefenbaker was elected prime minister with a promise to cut spending. The Arrow immediately became a target. Around the same time, Canada signed the NORAD agreement with the United States. Officially, it was a joint defense pact. In reality, it meant Canada's defense strategy now had to align closely with Washington's priorities. and Washington was betting on missiles, not interceptors. Diefenbaker publicly declared that the age of fighter aircraft was ending and that the future belonged to missiles. Behind closed doors, decisions were already being shaped. Orders for 100 Arrow aircraft were halted. Avro Canada was told to continue only with the 6 existing prototypes. Engineers pleaded for time. Test flights had gone flawlessly. Performance exceeded expectations. International interest was growing. It didn't matter. On February 20th, 1959, a day now remembered as Black Friday in Canadian history, the government made its move. The Avro Arrow program was cancelled, effective immediately. Within hours, thousands of workers were laid off. Entire departments were shut down. Nearly 30,000 people across the aerospace supply chain lost their jobs in a single day. But cancellation wasn't enough. What came next is what still haunts the story. The government issued an order that stunned even supporters of the decision. Destroy everything. The 6 completed. Arrow aircraft were dragged out of hangars and cut apart with torches. Engines worth millions were smashed. Specialized manufacturing tools were scrapped. Blueprints were burned. Technical documents shredded. Years of research vanished in weeks. This wasn't normal. Most canceled aircraft programs are stored, sold, or preserved. The Arrow was erased with urgency, as if someone wanted it gone forever. The government never provided a clear explanation. Some speculate there was pressure from the United States, concerned about advanced technology falling into the wrong hands. Others believe it was about avoiding embarrassment or preventing political backlash. These claims remain unverified. But the speed of destruction raised questions that were never answered. The damage wasn't just physical, it was intellectual. Thousands of Canada's brightest engineers were suddenly unemployed. They didn't stay. Many moved to the United States, joining NASA and contributing to the Apollo program that put humans on the moon. Others went to Europe, helping develop the Concorde supersonic jet. Some joined Boeing, Lockheed, and McDonnell Douglas. Canada trained them. Canada lost them. In a bitter twist, just 2 years later, Canada purchased 66 American CF-101 Voodoo fighters to replace the Arrow. They were slower, less advanced, and already outdated. Canada destroyed its own future technology, then bought inferior technology from another nation. Today, the Avro Arrow survives only in fragments. A few pieces in museums, some blueprints quietly saved by engineers who couldn't accept seeing their life's work erased. Scale replicas that hint at what once was. Supporters argue that if the program had continued, Canada could have become a global aerospace leader. Defenders of the cancellation argue the costs were unsustainable and the world had already moved on to missiles. Both sides make sense, but one question still refuses to fade. Was the Avro Arrow betrayed by politics? Or was it simply born too early for a world that wasn't ready? Because one thing is undeniable. Canada didn't fail to build the future. Canada chose to destroy it.